Welcome to this demonstration of basic continuous integration for Fusion middleware. We are going to start by cloning a Git repository on GitHub which contains a sample SOA application with some BPOL processes and some service bus proxy services and business services, pipelines and so on. We are going to use Hudson to manage our build. So I've just downloaded Hudson from the Hudson website, and let's go ahead and start that for the first time. Okay, we see here initial setup required, so let's go to the Hudson page and do that. Okay, so now we are going to want to use the Git plugin and the Maven 3 plugin. So let's select those two and we'll install those plugins now. Okay, that's finished installing the plugins, so let's click on Finish and start up Hudson. And we'll just wait a few moments for it to start, and then we will go ahead and define a new job to build the sample application we just downloaded. Okay, so let's create a new job. We'll call this ISW, and we're going to tell it to get the source code from Git, and the repository is going to be this one. And let's add a build step. We want to execute Maven 3, and we'll do a pre-integration test goal. Okay, that'll do us for now. Let's go ahead and save that, and we'll build that job, run that job now, and we can take a look at the console and watch the output as the job is running. So you can see here it's checked out the source code from Git. Sorry, it's starting up Maven now and starting to build the project. Okay, so it's starting off with a composite called validate payment. It's compiled that, created a SAR file, and deploying that to our test server. Moving on to a composite now called process order, and building and deploying that. Now it's moved on to the service bus components, building and deploying the system project, the shared SB project, a process order SB project, and then it will do a validate payment project. Okay, and that's finished successfully. So we can see here in the summary it's built our two SOA composites, which contain BPOL processes and mediators and so on, and our 4 service bus projects. It's compiled, packaged them up into SAR files and service bus archives, and got them all deployed to our test server instance. So let's go ahead now and make some changes, and let's see how they automatically get picked up and built. So let's just change our job configuration. We're going to tell Hudson to automatically check the Git repository to look for changes. We'll just tell it to do it every minute. In real life you wouldn't do that, but for the purposes of this demonstration we don't want to have to wait around too long, so we'll tell it to check every minute. Okay, and let's just go ahead and change something. So if we open up our, for example, our service bus project in JDeveloper, let's say validate payment. Oops, sorry. Open up the project first, the application. Okay, so let's take a look in our validate payment pipeline, and just for argument's sake we can put a report activity into here. Okay, go ahead and save that. Now if we jump back out and take a look at our project, okay, so let's take a look at our Git repository, and we see there's the file that we just changed. So let's go ahead and commit that change to the repository. Add a report activity to validate payment pipeline. Okay, and now if we go back to Hudson, and we'll just wait for it to notice that update and start a new build. Okay, so we see it has noticed that there's a change and it's started a new build, so let's go ahead and watch the build executing. Okay, so we can see it working through the validate payment composite, and now it's on to the process order composite. That deployed, and now it's moving on to the service bus projects. Okay, and that's finished. So let's jump over to Enterprise Manager and take a look at our service bus project and validate that we see the change we just made. Okay, so let's take a look in the service bus. Here's our validate payment project. Actually, let's just go ahead and do a export. And we'll just save that file in temp. Okay, and we can go ahead and open that file up. See, temp. Okay, validate payment. Here's the pipeline, and you can see the report activity that we added is indeed here. Okay, so now let's go ahead and build some tests. So we are going to use SoapUI to create a test for our one of our service bus proxy services and include that in our build. So let's create a new SOAP project. We'll call it process order SB, and we need to give it the URL for the WSDL file. Okay, and we want to create a test suite. We don't need a request, so let's click on OK, and we are going to create a test suite for the process operation. That's correct, so let's say yes, give it a name, and let's go ahead and open up our newly created test suite. And we have a sample soap packet. Let's paste that in now. Okay, so there is our sample soap packet. We can go ahead and run that now to validate that that does in fact work. And we notice, for example, there's an order acknowledgement here with an order number. So let's go ahead and add an assertion to make sure that we get an order number. So we're going to use the property contains, and we are looking for order number. Okay, so now we can see our assertion is here. So our test case is basically going to send this packet to the service URL and check that the response does in fact have an order number in it. So let's go ahead and save this project, and we will save it into our project that we're working with. Okay, and now before we go on, let's just run that from the command line to make sure that that does in fact work the way we expect. Okay, you see the test run here. It sent the request, got a response, and our assertion was valid, so that's good. That means our test worked successfully. Okay, so now we need to go ahead and configure our Maven project to run the test as part of the build. So let's go ahead and do that now. We'll add the test to the service bus, to the process order service bus project. So here we have the POM file for the process order service bus project, and let's go ahead and add in some additional configuration to tell it to run the SOAP UI test as part of the build. Okay, so what we've added here is a new plugin that will execute SOAP UI. We have told it during the pre-integration test phase we want to run that plugin's test goal with these parameters. So we're telling it the name of our SOAP UI project that we just created. We're telling it that we do want it to create a JUnit report and where to save that report. Okay, so let's go ahead and commit those changes that we have just made to our Git repository. So we want the service bus process order SB POM file, and we want the process order SB SOAP UI project. Those other log files were generated when we ran the utility. We don't need to commit those. Okay, so let's go ahead and commit added SOAP UI tests. And now let's go back to Hudson and let's change our job configuration to make it collect the results of the tests. So after the build is done, we want to publish JUnit test reports from that location. Okay, you may see this error message because that location doesn't actually exist yet, but next time the job runs it will create that location and put the reports in there. Now, so we could just wait a minute for it to notice the change, or we can just go ahead and manually start the build. And again, let's just watch the build executing. Okay, so there's the first composite, second composite, and moving on to service bus. And running the SOAP-UI test, and this time we got the name right, and you see here's the post, the response, and our test was valid. Okay, and Hudson has also picked up the test results here. So if we go back to our project page, I'll just run another build, and after a couple of successful builds, we'll see the test results appear as a trend chart on the page. Okay, so now we have two builds. We see the test result trend showing up here on the job page. So that was a quick introduction to setting up some very basic continuous integration for SOA projects, including BPEL and service bus components, and creating some simple tests.